Hi, I'm Steve Ashton. I'm the owner of Freedom Kilts, and I'm also the designer of what today is called the contemporary style of kilt. I've prepared this video for you to help you to learn how to measure for my style of kilt. That's because they fit differently than a traditional kilt that you may be used to. The difference is that when you order one of my kilts, you are going to make all the decisions about how you want to wear your kilt, what you are going to do in your kilt, and what you're going to be comfortable with. So let's begin by describing my measuring system. If you've looked at the website of different kilt makers, you may notice that they ask for different measurements or they describe how to take those measurements slightly differently. A small caution. Please don't send me the measurements from another kilt maker. And don't send my measurements to someone else. They won't understand what all these different numbers are about. And another caution, please don't send me your trouser size. Trousers today are vanity sized. Now, women have been dealing with vanity sizing for years. Today, clothing manufacturers list the size about 2 or maybe 3 inches smaller than they actually are, so that you think you're in a smaller size. You may have also noticed that almost all other kilt makers require you to have 2 people to take the measurements. This is because it's almost impossible to measure from your waist down to your knee without bending over and throwing the measurements off. What I have done is tried to come up with a system that allows you to take all of your measurements by yourself. Here's an overview of what we're going to be doing. Well, first, you're going to need some tools. The first thing you're going to need is something to measure yourself with. The best thing is a flexible tape measure like a tailor uses. If you don't have a flexible tape measure, a belt or a strap and a yardstick will also work. The next thing you're going to need is a piece of paper and something to write with. Now, you're going to need a roll of masking tape and some vertical surface. That can be the edge of a door frame, the corner of a wall. I'm going to use the back of my mirror to simulate the corner of a door for you. The last tool that you're going to need is a strap of some kind. Now, you can use a kilt belt, or like me, you can use a wide strap like this. You're going to use this to simulate where your waistband of your kilt is going to be as you take your measurements. Now I'm going to give you a couple terms that you need to know. The first of these is drop. On my type of kilt, drop is defined as the distance or the length from the top of the waistband to the bottom of the hem. The second term is the fell. The fell is the area in the back of the kilt which is tapered and sewn down. On my type of kilt, that is from the top of the waistband down to the crest of your hips or butt. Now we come to the actual measurements and numbers that I'm going to ask you to take. There are 6 measurements that I'm going to ask you to write down and send to me. They are the waist circumference, the hip circumference, the fell length, the drop length, and your front and rear slope. Before we actually start taking measurements, I realize that you're probably going to be taking your measurements while wearing blue jeans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change into a pair of blue jeans, and I'm going to take my measurements exactly the same way that you would take yours. Last time I had these on, I was painting my house 30 feet up a ladder. You don't want to scare the neighbors, but it does feel weird to me, okay? So we're now going to talk about the fit of your kilt. This is where you want the waistband of your kilt to be and where you want the hem to reach down at your knee. To understand how the fit of my kilts differs from that of a traditional kilt, I've got my full traditional kilt here for you to look at. You'll notice that the top strap is down about 2 inches from the top of the waistband. And you'll also notice that the smallest part of the kilt is right there, equal to that top strap. The kilt tapers into that point and then flares back out. This cinches into your natural waist. So how do you find your natural waist? Well, the best way I have found is to take your hand, spread your fingers, and put your fingers right here on your spine and your thumb right underneath your ribs at the side. Then bend into your thumb. you'll feel your thumb go into a depression right here underneath your ribs. That is your natural waist, and that is where a traditional kilt fits. The really nice thing about a Freedom Kilt is you're not limited to wearing them only at full rise. But why would you wear a kilt at full rise? Well, if you're going to go for a traditional look, you want full rise. If you're going to go and wear a Prince Charlie, which is the short jacket with tails, you have to wear your kilt at full rise. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of white shirt between the bottom of the jacket and the top of the kilt. And it is also great if you are a gentleman of substance, because it allows the apron to fall straight down from the front of your stomach. It's very slimming. Let me demonstrate full rise for you. Remember the strap that I showed you earlier? Well, wrap the strap around your waist where your thumb was, and then you're going to move it back and forth until it settles into its natural place where it wants to go. Now, many kilt makers will reference where the waist is to the front, to your navel. What I want you to start thinking about is here at the back instead. At traditional rise, it is cinched into your kidney level, right here. Now I'm going to show you mid-rise. This is really nice for average size guys like me. I wear most of my kilts at mid-rise. Here's how you find mid-rise. Take your strap and put it so that it is just above your hip bones, right about here. In the back, it is cinched into the small or the nape of your back. The next position for your waist is what we call low rise. That is where blue jeans are worn. You can see where my jeans are. Now I'm going to move the strap down to low rise. The strap is now riding over my hip bones, and in the back it is sitting just on the rise of my buttocks. Now we're going to take the first of the measurements. This is going to be your waist circumference. I've got my strap set where I want to wear the waistband of my kilt. This is mid-rise, and now I'm going to take my waist circumference measurement. I'm going to take my tape measure, and I am going to wrap the tape around my waist right at the top of the waistband. You want this measurement to be fairly loose. It should be able to move back side to side, but just snug enough so there's no slack. And you want to read your number right there to the nearest ½ inch. The next measurement is your hip circumference. Now, I'm going to leave my strap at my waistband where I had it. This is going to stay in the same position throughout all of the rest of the measurements. I'm just going to move the tape measure. I'm going to take the tape around the widest part of my hips and butt, and I'm going to have this fairly loose. You should be able to move back and forth quite easily. If you are a gentleman of substance, you may want to pull this tape out a little bit so it is a little bit more straight down from your stomach. Read your tape measure at this point and get this measurement to the nearest ½ inch. You've now taken your waist circumference and your hip circumference. All of the rest of the measurements are vertical measurements, and this is where my system differs so greatly from most other kilt makers. So what I'm going to do, pull my tapes off here, and remember your vertical surface, the corner of a wall or a door frame. Now get your masking tape. The whole reason for the tape is so that you're not marking up your wife's paint. You're going to put a piece of tape on your corner of your wall. The top of the tape should be higher than your waist, and the bottom of the tape should be below your knee. To find your 0 point, use the top of the waistband right at where the side seam of your jeans is. Then stand next to your wall or your door frame and make a mark right there at the top of your waistband and label this 0, where all of the other measurements are measured from. Okay, now the first of the vertical measurements. This is your fell length. To find your fell, turn around backwards to your wall. and slowly back up. The first part of your butt that touches the wall, make a mark there. And mark this F for fell. All right, the next measurement is to find your drop, or the top of the waistband to the bottom of the hem. But where do you want to wear your hem? Well, it's a personal preference thing. If you're going to go for a traditional look, you might want your hem to be at the top of your kneecap. This is for when you wear kilt hose, you want to show a little knee. But in a contemporary style kilt, you can wear them with boots and your socks pushed down, so you might want to go to mid-knee or even the bottom of your knee. So, find your kneecap, find where you want your hem, and make a mark on your wall and label this mark D. The last two measurements you're going to take are for your slope. Slope is one of those things that only Freedom Kilts measures for. The reason we do this is because we allow you to determine where you want to wear the waist of your kilt. In a traditional kilt worn at full rise, the waist is going to be almost horizontal, just as the hem is. But as you wear the waist a little bit lower, the slope becomes more evident. Here it is at mid-rise, and here it is at low rise. Notice on these jeans that the back is significantly higher than the front. If I did not take slope into consideration, it would cause a huge pucker in the front of the aprons and be quite unsightly. So we actually cut the front of your kilt a little lower than the back. To measure for your slope, what you're going to do is come up and find where your waistband is, the front of your waistband right here at your navel, and you're going to come up to your wall and you're going to make a mark right there at the front of the waistband. And you're going to label this minus for front slope. Then you're going to turn around and back up to your wall, and right at your spine, right where your spine is, you're going to find that part of the waistband, and you're going to make a mark there and label that plus for rear slope. Now you've made all the marks. Now it's time to record your measurements. Get your piece of paper and write down the 6 measurements that you're going to send me. The waist circumference, the hip circumference, the fell length, the drop length, and the front and rear slope. Then, get a tape measure, and you're simply going to measure from your 0 reference mark down to your F mark for fell and read that length. Please take this measurement to the nearest ½ inch. To find your drop, start at your 0 and measure down to D for drop, and take this measurement also to the nearest ½ inch. To find your front and rear slope, from your 0 down to your minus for your front slope, and then again from your 0 up to your plus for your rear slope. That's really all of the measurements that you need. I know that we ask you for more measurements than any other kilt maker, but this is the way we ensure that you get a kilt that fits you perfectly. If you have any questions at all, we are simply an email or a phone call away.